like to introduce to you a band that you know and love. Come to you like the sound of equipment being thrown from a moving van, the sound of dead cell phones and oil rigs, the sound of empty parking lots, school buses. They love to live and live to love. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus Children of America, the White Stripes.
Hello, come on in. The water's great. My name is Ryan Schaap, and this is the hardest podcast. Hope you're all having a great time. Hope you're having a great week. I'm gonna set the scene. I'm gonna paint a picture of what's going on right now. It is a heat wave here in Vancouver, about 30 degrees Celsius, 30 Celsius to, for all you Yankee Doodle Dannies, about 86. Hot as hell. Our front room in our little office, it gets very warm, so we have a little air conditioner. Air conditioner's turned off, so it sounds nice and crystal clear. So I am in the midst of a beat the clock challenge in recording this before I get sweated out in this sweat den. I'll also bring up that I'm in the process of moving. My lovely wife Amanda, and I are moving out of our apartment at the end of the month, and so things are in boxes, things are chaos, things are being packed, and when you sit down and take a look at you have a quick moment of reprieve. You look across the room and you say, maybe I could pack that. So that has been my week. So it will be an abbreviated intro. I'll paint a picture a little further. I'm sitting here drinking a beer, Kokanee, a real Canadian BC beer. Their slogan is it's the beer out here. And I'm watching my beloved Seattle Mariners have a huge rally against the San Diego Padres, including Cal Raleigh hitting his 50th home run of the season. In previous podcasts, I have let my personality traits, let my interests creep up left, right, and center. And I think I'm doing that on this show, but I'm not sure. So I think at this time, I'm moving, and I really like the Seattle Mariners. In the winter, that might change a bit. I bring up previous podcast iterations of mine because a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, is on the show this week. My former podcasting brethren, an integral member of my wedding party last year, and dear friend Arash is here. It is Shelter of Your Arms. It is a Greenhornes cover. It was released in 2005. The Greenhornes released it in 2005, and the White Stripes released their cover in 2005. If you're playing along at home, you can hear it on the B-side to the Denial Twist single. Or if you have the Japanese or deluxe version of the Walking with a Ghost EP, you can listen to it there. We are in the midst of a B-side stretch. Maybe it's because we're on the B-side of summer. So I really enjoyed my conversation with Kirk Hamilton last week. We spent a great deal of time talking. We were wondering if it was a cover or not. Unique history with Jack, Meg, the Greenhornes. And I got to give a quick shout out to Luke Sinclair on Instagram, who brought up a really good point that it was probably only played one time because Blanche was a regular opener for the White Stripes. So it makes you wonder if, hey, we know how you have this new lead single. I think I'd really like it. I think we're going to play it. We're going to punch it up for you. And the same curiosities can be found with this week's song, Shelter of Your Arms. It's starting to warm up in this room a fair bit, so I'm going to keep it real brief. Your first time here, I think you'll like this show. You like the White Stripes, you're going to like it. What are we doing on this show? We are celebrating their entire catalog, one song per episode. And what's our goal of this show? Well, it's simple. It's to have Jack White on this show 3 times to be interviewed. What's he going to be talking about? One of 3 mystery songs per episode. So yes, I've made my lofty goals already quite lofty. To ask an artist to come on and not necessarily talk about their creative process, but talk about an era of their life and of their musical history. And I'm going to ask him to do that 3 times. And what songs are they? They're a goddamn mystery, and I won't tell you. I won't even tell him. Tell that you can take that to Third Man Records. So that's the goal of this show. And if you like this show, you like the White Stripes, you're enjoying how we are covering the band here, go tell a friend. Go tell 7 friends. Bring 7 friends, but we don't really have anywhere for you to bring them. So just tell 7 friends, and don't be selfish, and don't eat shellfish if you have an allergy. You know, I don't know what that would cost in terms of hospital visits. If you really like what we're doing on this show and you want to support it, go to buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod. That's buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod. Every dollar that you give is invested right back into this show. And go rate and review on your podcast platform of choice, and follow us on social media. We're everywhere, except whatever Twitter's called these days. Hardest Pod to Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok. With that note, it is now time for our call to action this week. I'm going to do it along with you just to make sure we know where to find it. So we're going to hit pause on this podcast. You're going to go to your streaming platform of choice. You're going to type in the search, and you're going to go Shelter of Your Arms. And a couple things will pop up, but we're looking for the White Stripes version. It's got a photo of Jack off his bicycle, worried about some sort of raccoon. Perhaps it was a bicycle accident, but you'll find it on your streaming platform of choice. Hit pause. And okay, you're back. Man, there's a lot to that song, isn't there? Maybe you've never heard that one before. It is a very good but very un-White Stripes song, while also being all of that and then some. All right. With that being said, let's talk to Arash, and let's talk about Shelter of Your Arms. Our guest this week has spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours podcasting with myself. You can hear them on your local sports radio airwaves on Sportsnet 650, and a prominent member of my wedding party. He is Arash Memarzadeh. Arash, how are you doing?
How will this episode affect what Elias Pettersson will do in the upcoming? No, I'm kidding. It's so refreshing, Ryan, not to talk sports with you. I've never been
Couldn't
more
agree more.
excited in my life after we spent 5 years every Monday talking about potentially one of the worst ran sports franchises in North America. And we get to talk. I think this is you and I have had in-depth discussions about music, mainly
Mm-hmm.
my weird weeb taste in or JRPG soundtracks, and you just being a salt of the earth guy who just you just want to work on your Hemi, drink a beer, and have a little bit of rock and or roll, bro.
Yeah,
And
and if I'm feeling saucy, there might be some blues rock elements in that rock and
whoa,
roll,
whoa,
which
whoa,
is
whoa, whoa, whoa,
what those Stripes are.
let me tell you, that's when they jumped the shark, is when Jack started listening to the blues. It was just too much. It was too much. We just needed general rock and roll. It's when they started. It's just, I don't know, folk. We're introducing folk to punk rock ish now. This is not great.
It's tough, man.
It's tough.
Arash, give me your elevator pitch on the White Stripes.
Oh, that's a great question. I think the White Stripes were almost like a cultural reset. Because
Yep.
if you think about where we were coming from, so the first album was like
This is a long
2000.
elevator. Hey, give me
Sorry,
an elevator pitch.
fine. It's a cultural reset after the new metal uh, addiction that the world had with Limp Bizkit, Insane Clown Posse, all this reset of getting back to just simple rock and roll, um, a rock and roll duo that through the times, through their effectiveness, was just them focusing on what they were about. And I think
Ding. Fifth floor is
that's what it
menswear.
is.
Elegantly put. You hit the nail right on the head. But yeah, this is an interesting time for the band. Where are you as a White Stripes consumer?
Oh, dude, this was what, 2006,
Late '05.
late '05. I mean, I was probably in grade 9 and 10. Um, at the time, like, you're seeing these music videos, specifically in Canada. I mean, you'll have MTV down in the States, but in Canada, you had Much Music, and a lot of our, the cultural thing kids probably did is like you hung out at your friend's house. It's like 11 p.m. You turn on Much Music. There's like The Wedge, which is a show about indie music videos, and there's like the French one and all this. And you see these music videos where it's Jack and Meg, and it's just kind of some of the coolest shit you're probably seeing at the time. It's, Hendrix for our generation, where we didn't have kind of that idea of psychedelic rock at the moment. It's kind of our first little taste bus foray into it. So you see the Seven Nation
Yeah,
Army, Hardest Buttons Button, all this stuff, and it's just the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing around. It's like there's nothing cooler than this. Like, are they brother sister? What's going on? Oh, this is kind of interesting. It's like, well, they're just they're two fucking awesome rock stars. Um, and then yeah, I just at the time, like, I very formative kind of band that took me through my early youth. And I think that's a bit of a credence to them, in that um I don't think the White Stripes needed to be any more than what they were, especially for someone as young as me, you know,
absolutely.
where, Ryan, like, I don't know how you feel, but younger people have a tendency to overshoot certain facets of art. So, like,
Hmm.
well, we're 15, 16, we're like, yeah, we listen to Pink Floyd, man. We get Pink Floyd, brother. We totally
Yeah.
understand all the nuances, where it's like you're just listening to the thing because it makes you seem older than you are. Whereas the White Stripes, when no, but as the
Yeah,
White
it's
Stripes,
very
it's the thing is that I could see now, becoming older, that I'm probably way more interested in the White Stripes now than I probably ever would be something more complicated when I was younger, because now I appreciate the
yeah.
beauty of what they were doing. That I don't need to, it's not like a huge experience synopsis about what they were. They were what they were, and they were fucking great
Yeah.
at it. And that's what we needed at that time.
I like the way you put it, like explaining how you could be into them and at what level at that age. Like,
Mhm.
it makes me think that the White Stripes were like not a choose your own adventure, but like you could get into them at whatever level you liked. Like I think the videos are cool. I think they dress and look cool. I think these songs are cool. And then as you dig in, you're like, oh, they have their live shows are incredibly well regarded and are super powerful and unique. And oh, they cover some of the strangest choice of songs, from like traditional like Delta blues to Dolly Parton to Burt
Mhm.
Bacharach, and they all sound just like insane. And you could like them as surface level as you want, or as deep as you did, and
Mhm.
they would deliver that. Like, I don't know of a lot of bands from this era, from those mid 2000s, that have the substance that they have, but through that level of authenticity and presentation, like there is something that has people going back to this band and
Mhm.
latching onto them.
I think a big thing also, Ryan, for like our generation is, was there anyone you knew outside of maybe the weird kids
Yeah,
that on their iPod or their Sony MP3 player, at this was like the dawn of it, if you did not have at least one of the like one quintessential White Stripes song on your thing, you couldn't come across that kid. You couldn't, you
I would
didn't.
agree.
They were so quintessential in the beginning kind of idea of like limitless access to your music, pick and choose your music. You get to
Yeah,
pick. The unfortunate side effect to that was the idea of track lists and albums kind of went away. It was like,
yeah,
hey, I can just listen to the single, where It's like, well, it's kind of taking like the third meal of a 5 meal course, and just, there's a connectiveness to it. But I think that's what's resonated the most with me, is that the band was so attached to like my daily kind of perspective of how I went. It's like one of the songs you're bound to hear something on shuffle. You're bound to hear,
Mm-hmm.
hardest button, but whatever, whichever track you want to pick. You're bound to hear that at least once in a day in between 2002 and 2010, whatever. It's still to this day. And now we're at a position where you have a catalog. You have catalog to all the music in the world in your phone.
Or
And
you go to a soccer game the night before, and you probably hear them chanting it
we did.
chanting a White Stripe song 4 or 5 times.
I went to the Vancouver Whitecaps game last night, and our great friend Andrew. I saw Joe and the baby, and you heard da, 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 and we almost broke. I think what was the cutest thing was when the fans and everything were obviously clapping along and stuff. Andrew goes over to the baby. It's like, and this is your Uncle Ryan's favorite band, and he has a podcast about them that you're gonna listen to. And I thought that was very cute.
It's It's about time somebody starts spreading the word of this damn show.
Hey, pal. Hey, wait. We gotta get a sponsor. Where's the sponsorship? Where's Third Man Records here?
Those fat cats, those bigwigs, they're a tough nut to crack.
I'm gonna go camp outside Third Man Records in Nashville in the sweltering heat. I'm not gonna leave. I'm not gonna leave until they give us some merch.
A $5 gift card.
Well played.
So we're doing another cover this week. It is an obscure one. It is one far off the beaten path. The song is "Shelter of Your Arms." It is a Greenhornes song. And now, Arash, I don't expect you to know too much about the Greenhornes, but they are a band from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Their bass player and their drummer
Was
on.
it Raconteurs, correct?
That's correct.
Yay! Point for
and their
me.
drummer Patrick Wheeler was the drummer for Jack's recent solo tour. So this is an incestuous bunch. They're all pals. They're all lifting each other up.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2005, they actually opened up for the White Stripes on that Get Behind Me Satan tour. And I saw them 2 nights at the illustrious Orpheum Theater playing their subdued take on rock and roll.
What year was this again? Sorry.
2005. So I just graduated high school.
You poor guy. Orpheum. So this must have been a time where I don't know. Were you at BCIT at the time? As he downs his fifth bubbly. Were you still living out in Abbotsford?
Oh yeah, this was a trek into the city, but back then it took 50 minutes to get
Gotcha.
from Abbotsford.
So did you do like a hotel thing where you like stayed at a hotel and it was like
I was
Ryan in the big city?
I was 18.
I don't know.
I couldn't drink. I didn't have money to my name.
So wait. So what did you do? Because it was 2 nights.
Drove home, went to bed, drove back the next day.
Mad
Listen,
lad.
when you live in Abbotsford, when you live out in the valley, getting out of the valley and going into the big city, like you're if you got to do it 2 days in a row, you're gonna do it. It is everything that you want.
If there's anything I know Ryan to do, it's committing to the bit. Man, he committed. Darn it! He's like, we're doing this.
So the Greenhornes released this. They released this song on their East Grand Blues EP, which came out August 2nd, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite website, Pitchfork, actually reviewed the EP. They gave it a 6.8, and if I may quickly press through, the EP expands their repertoire considerably thanks to producer and Jack White collaborator Brendan Benson, also in the Raconteurs, who polishes and sophisticates the Greenhorn sound. Whereas their previous material was blisteringly raw and rowdy, these 5 songs prove much more cleaner and more studied, hinting at a significantly different approach in a radically different direction. Part of the EP sounds invigorated by the change and exhibit the trio's range, but the new tack has its drawbacks. East Grand Blues begins with its most lackluster tracks. I'm Going Away sets dreamy harmonies to a Roger McGuinn guitar theme but seems lifeless, and Shelter of Your Arms perks up only for Craig Fox insistent "Don't Walk Away" on the chorus. How did you listen to the Greenhornes version of this song?
I did, yes. And
Okay, what are your thoughts on their version?
Yeah, I just kind of thought I thought I'm like I think I've heard this on. I don't want to be too harsh. Can I? Am I going to be harsh?
I'm also going to be harsh on this song,
I
but
felt like I felt like this cover was like a song that I listened to on royalty free music archives at some point. I was like I didn't. Part of me was like for the majority of this track I was like I don't really know outside of this just being one kind of just people just jamming. I couldn't really understand what was like the emotional hook, especially when you're going for these kind of more simply like very rooted emotional. You're dealing with lyrics that are very, there's no gray area, right? You're not making giant metaphors. You're not connecting kind of, Sufjan Stevens level of threads and songs like this. Like you're talking, it's Shelter of Your Arms. Like, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward in that. But it's I'm really interested in talking about the when they actually covered the song, because I feel like that's where the meat is on the bone, where we talk about the effectiveness of the White Stripes as a band and their ability to elevate and not get in their own way sometimes, where it's just take what it is and just elevate it with the craft and elevate it with your strengths.
I couldn't agree more. The Greenhornes are not my. They're a very fine band. They are clearly very good musicians. They were important parts of several Jack White projects, but I never really went down that path. They're a little more subdued. And what's really strange is their version of this song is almost 5 minutes. It's 4:51, and it feels like that. It feels like it is a slog to get to the end. And so the White Stripes cover this, and it's 1 minute and 20 seconds faster. It's not a fast song at all, but just kind of bringing that tempo up a few beats per minute really makes it a little more palatable and digestible. So that song comes out on August 2nd of 2005, and they release this song November 7th, 2005, as part of their as a B-side for the Denial Twist album. So they are in an era of Jack White is in a era of exceptionally efficient creativity. They had a ton of he demoed like a motherfucker on "Get Behind Me, Satan."
When I heard this point, like when we were reading the show notes, it was the funniest thing to me, because you talk. I mean, we'll get into it about the concept of what really makes a cover work and what resonates as a cover. I just find it hilarious that like Jackson, the production, like he's producing this song, he's helped producing everything, and then just a few months down the road, he's like, "All right, I ain't gonna even let this song breathe before I fix it." It's just one of the ultimate like. It's something I would envision. It's something I envision like Steve Jobs doing, where he's just like, "Listen, you invented this thing. You invented the Apple Newton. It's terrible. I'm going to bring up this thing called the iPad, and you don't realize that your finger is actually supposed to be the stylus." And I just assume the guys in Greenhornes are like, God, why didn't you tell us that?
And then Jack, the White Stripes record and release that song, and then Jack says, "Hey, you mind if I take the bass player and the drummer for my super group?" So they in between touring, this I can't find an exact date they were recorded this, but on their tour they stopped at Ultra Suede Studio in Cincinnati, and they recorded this song, this cover, and they also recorded "Walking with a Ghost," the Tegan and
Hmm.
Sarah cover.
Yeah.
So a theme of them at this time was lifting up their pals, but also covering music incredibly quickly. Um, which I really like because, one of the most like celebrated things in rock history is the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band as a single on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And on the Friday, the Jimi Hendrix Experience is covering it in the bar, in the clubs in London. And can you think of any off the top of your head besides that one, any like rapid fire covers of new songs?
Oh, I mean, like currently.
Yeah, or just in history,
Yeah, so
anytime.
it's tough because we live in such a different era where you're talking about, we talk about Hendrix covering the Beatles, where it's basically, someone releases a song on a Tuesday, artist hears it, either Tuesday, Wednesday, they have a gig at a bar on Thursday, Friday, they play it there, and then through word of mouth, you have to either go to the show to hear it, if they're
Yeah.
playing it at all, and then that cult kind of status comes around where you're like, oh, I'm wondering what's happening. I wonder, oh, I would love to hear this rendition of it. I can't think. I mean, there's egregious ones I can think of how certain covers are now commercialized, right? And within EDM and pop music, I think of, I think the hilarity of, oh gosh, what's that song? What you get, what you give, where
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's this song where it comes out and it's this huge anti-capitalist song. It's not, the lyrics are very clear, totally anti-capitalist, and then what happens? Well, the capitalist industry gets on it, and it's in every second or third commercial, and then we have an EDM mix of it, and it's just the irony between those things. um I would have loved to be in an era where you you always oh, it's, not to use a sports metaphor, but it's kind of like, how we have those discussions about, oh, we wonder what if this player played on this team, and we would like fantasy book certain scenarios. Obviously,
Hmm.
we fantasy book within music how we think of our favorite artists, and maybe another favorite artist in a different genre. So, like, for me, part of it is like, oh, I really like Angel Olsen, for example, a great artist out of Asheville, North Carolina, and then I love Danny Brown, the rapper Danny Brown. And at one point, they were kind of talking and being like, "Oh, we both admire each other's work." And then I would love to be in an era where that was so much more mainstream, or within
Sure. Yeah.
the capacity or mainstream, where artists could collaborate with each other, or at least respect each other in such a tight time frame, where you had to be in a specific city to go after that thing. You
Yeah.
couldn't just hop on the internet and then that happens. It's funny, Ryan, that we don't have it more, right?
I would agree. And one thing that had made the White Stripes as special as they were, and in particular Jack White's approach to um, songwriting and creating music is like, I have a very finite window. We have X amount of time. We need to get this done. I'm putting all of these difficulties, uh, these speed bumps in front of me, and I'm going, again with my back against the wall. I'm going to give it my best shot, because in previous history for him, that's when he delivers. That like
Hmm.
when he's got something nipping at his heels, he gets that much
Isn't
better.
isn't isn't that the antithesis for so many creatives though? Where
I
it's
think so.
it's it's like we are so in our minds and our heads that the deadline and the constriction actually helps our brain
Yeah.
kill a few of our darlings. Like, we get to a point where we're like, listen, I got 45 minutes to do this. I've got five ideas. I need to get rid of two. It's like a Sophie's choice situation because I have to get this thing done. You have to pick. And
Yeah.
it is so true. And then that does, there are artists that are way more kind of free form and finite and everything. But the idea of like being against those deadlines. When you realize that and you specifically put yourself in situations to press against the things in your brain that are just
Yeah.
procrastinating, and it is a kind of a bit of a superpower when you're able to do that.
Yeah, and luckily for these artists, for the White Stripes, they understood what environment and what limitations put in front of them made them, at their absolute best in terms of creating art. So that's kind of why they were able to put out in such a specific, only a 10-year window. Every album they put out was good. Four of them are excellent, and there's no procrastination. There's no dicking around. It's just, let's get to work. We know it works, and let's
Hmm.
trust ourselves. And that's what they did. Um, let's talk about their cover of this song. For me personally, compared to the Greenhornes version, I think this one is um, leaps and bounds better. I also think that um, like the White Stripes have a tremendous track record with taking a cover and just giving it its own life and making it something gigantic. They did it with Jolene and I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself, which are like
Mm.
their guiding light of making something special. With this one, because it's just a B-side, because their contemporaries and their pals are, you know, putting this album out and putting this music out, like I think that the limitations was, let's do something good, but let's not kind of steal it from them. What do you think?
I, so before I get to what I think, I really want to ask you a question. When we first started talking about this song, you told me a very funny anecdote about when you first heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you let us know what that was?
Certainly. So with the White Stripes, they're very the type of act they are. The best way I can describe it, I brought it up in an earlier episode. You really rooted for them. They were
Hmm.
like, if you liked the White Stripes, you really loved them, and you liked the idea of what they were, and the process of how they chose to make music and the delivery. Because Jack was the very, Jack is the songwriter. He wrote it all. Meg was anything but a passenger, but she contributed something,
Hmm.
that she contributed a very particular ideal type of drumming and percussion and energy and vibe that worked when they wanted to make that type of stripped down garage rock music. So, if you love Jack, you love Meg, you are an advocate against Meg hate, and you think like, yeah, she is perfect for this role and in this group, and it was stripped down garage rock. So when Shelter of Your Arms comes out as this B-side, you already began to notice at the time of Get Behind Me Satan, like the songs were getting a little more kind of complex. There
Hmm.
was shitloads of instruments, there were overdubs, there was this, there was that, it is not white blood cells, set up 4 mics and we'll record the album like that. So
Yeah.
when Shelter of Your Arms comes out, this cover, it is so overproduced, it is so overdubbed, and it is so everything that the White Stripes up until this point were not, that I immediately got worried and I immediately got stressed out that this is the type of music that
Oh
Jack
man,
is now wanting to do. He's
you're
wanting to
yeah,
produce this,
yeah,
and Meg is
100%.
going to be left on the curb.
This is the reason I wanted to bring this up and ask you to tell that, is that we have all had that moment with our favorite artists.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was younger, when obviously we're, one of my favorite artists was Kanye West before he decided to, not seek therapy, and it just kind of went off the rails after that.
Did you say not seek or not see?
Hey, we still have the razzle dazzle, Ryan. We still got the gap. Yeah, how about both? Why not?
There
I
you
don't
go.
know. Wait till he reads a book and he's like, oh, they're
So
bad.
you,
Oh, they're the bad guys. Oh, no
so you had a
way.
what was what was your moment with
So
Kanye?
my moment with Kanye West, I think this was probably everyone's moment with him. Um, Most people would have been 808s and Heartbreak, where he's putting the 808s and he's talking about all this, his introspective stuff. His mother had just died, and people are
Hmm.
like, "Hey, where's the backpack wearing polo kid? I want the this is the shut up and play the hits. This is shut up and
Yeah,
dribble. This is this. We want you to just be what you are forever." And we this for me, in the first time that happened to me, I understood emotionally. I'm like, oh, he's in this state. He just lost his mother. He has a lot of stuff that he wants to get. Sure, why not take this
yeah.
detour? For me, it was Yeezus, and Yeezus was again a rite of spring sort of album where people didn't understand. It was like ABBA was way ahead of their time, and they got so much hate. And then now we're like, we love ABBA. There's no way we love ABBA. Everyone loves ABBA. No one ever said anything bad. And so, for the perspective of, like, do you think for you that was the first moment where you were tentatively like, oh, are they changing?
They were evolving in a very natural progression from
Hmm.
like through their big hits. But they kind of were able to really spread their wings creatively on Get Behind Me Satan. And I kind of didn't know where they would go from there, if they were still going to be in the, keep it between the lanes of this is a stripped down minimalist kind of garage rock band, because
Hmm.
they just kept going, you know, they just kept getting more, I don't want to say eccentric, but compared to what they were before, with the addition of production and music
Yeah.
and instruments, like they were becoming different. So when this song comes out, and it's not a big hit. This is anything but a hit. It was a B-side. They wrote it. They recorded it very quickly, during a very big tour. What came out was just more confirmation that they were heading that way. And for
Yeah.
me,
100%.
I go. This is becoming a band. This is not a duo. This is
Yeah.
Jack wanting to create a band. And if he wants to have a full band with a lot more grandiose and larger, with a more, immersive or larger like approach to music, I don't know if that's where Meg falls in line, or Meg
Hmm.
is suited for that role. So like not long after this song comes out, they announced that they're going to Jack's going to have a new band, the Raconteurs, because
Yeah.
their album comes out in summer of '06, and those first singles came out in the spring. Now he was very quick. He was very adamant that, like, I've always been in multiple bands at the time, and in when the White Stripes got big, he was in like three other bands. He's not downplaying anything about the White Stripes, but it makes you worry that he's going to get a taste of what else he can do out there, and this perfect little house that we've built is not going to be the same.
Every dude trying to explain polyamory for the first time. They're like, no, I still this. We're just a multiple band. I've always done this. I know what this. It's just too much music for one group. Music's what. Um, y- it is really interesting to me that this is. So this is 2006, correct?
Late 2005.
Late 2005, going into 2006. This is such an interesting time because we're just about to see this next evolution, I think, of what the White Stripes really put into play in the 2000s. We're about to get the Black Keys. With, I think, 2006 was their debut. I think Magic Potion was 2006, right? So we're about to get,
Around there, yeah.
yeah, we're about to get the Black Keys. Kings of Leon, I think, in 2007 come out and they start doing their thing. Um, I also want to say that the Arctic Monkeys and Alex Turner, they come out with an album, everything I say that I am, I'm not, where every single song on that album, I think, wants to be Seven Nation Army. It wants to be this rah rah. The mates are at the pub, united. Arsenal's on the TV, and we're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm having a pissing time. We're trying to do that. Um, and so it was an interesting time where I also was asking as a young kid, I was like, yeah, what is it? What are they going to become? Because after I'm listening to Get Behind Me Satan and everything, I'm like, yeah, what I wonder like what's next? Like
Yeah.
how far? And then getting into the Rock on Tours bit, I'm like, oh, this is kind of it's a bit more vibrant and poppy. And I'm like, okay, there's a bit more nuance here happening. Um, but the thing that I find interesting really about this cover, I might be wrong. Tell me if I am.
Okay.
When I was hearing more piano and more. Does Jack use a lot of like the wah wah pedal there?
This is the first and only White Stripes
No.
song to have a wah pedal.
Oh my god. Okay, great. So
So it is strange. It is a strange
it
White
is.
Stripes song.
And I mentioned to you at the start, I felt like the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh, this is a Bond track.
Yeah.
I just felt like this was going to go into, at some point, I'm going to see Pierce Brosnan or Daniel Craig come and just like shoot at the screen at me, trying to feel that. But it was really interesting to me from the perspective of, yeah, it's at the end of this kind of segment for them where things are in a transitory period, but they're trying new things.
Hmm.
They're not sounding exactly like I expected them to sound, and going back to the idea of simplicity, the beauty and simplicity comes with a caveat. And the caveat being that the more, the kind of Phil Spector wall of sound that you get with things, you can't, it's very hard to balance. It's very hard to
Absolutely.
balance the simplicity with, my favorite thing that I bugged, I believe, guest of the show and a friend of ours, Mike Noble, about is that I always say, if you add piano and strings to a song, it's one more, one rating up on Pitchfork automatically. Automatically, it's a, I swear to God, if you go to any artist that's like, this is rock and this is what we're doing, and then they go and they add like piano and strings and they become whatever the next thing, automatic 1 star up. So it was just really curious. It was really curious to me, and yeah, right, like I'm fascinated with what your feeling was at the time, and what they kind of became after this, because of course this is a B-side, and it's easy to
Yeah.
kind of just say it's a B-side and whatever. But it seems like this was kind of like your parents, like the nav screen is there, and your parents are like, I'm just gonna take this cheeky little exit just to see. And
It
you
it,
get
it
worried.
was a
You're like, are we still going to Disneyland? Or it's still going to Disneyland, right?
well after this Shelter of Your Arms detour and the Raconteurs detour, they get back on the highway and they do Icky Thump, but it's like a blessing and a curse. They go back to basics. It's a return to form. And like
Right.
I wanted to hear guitar and drums or electric organ and drums. I wanted it stripped down. But as soon as an artist starts telling you that it's a return to form, it is a return to form, sure, but it's also a um, they're they're putting their creative wings kind of the creative wings aren't taking them where the wind blows. They're taking them. It's like, how we should try to sound and we should try to be. Like
Hmm.
I grew when Get Behind Me Satan comes out in this era. I'm as a kid, as a dumb punk kid, I'm like, this doesn't sound like the original. This doesn't sound like the last stuff.
Yeah.
And then as a guy, in the mid, I'm 37 now, rediscovering Get Behind Me Satan. It's everything that the band should have done at the time. They're
Hmm.
dealing with a lot of they're dealing with the fallout of becoming famous and becoming celebrities, and a lot of people in Detroit kind of give up on them. They don't like they're not stoked that they're successful. So they write an album that is it's about truth. It's about what they're going through. And then at the same time, they are taking their friends that they have brought along the way, you know, your Greenhornes and your Brendan Bensons, and you're propping them up like we're gonna elevate the people that didn't talk shit about us, and we're
Hmm.
forgetting about the hangers on and the hipsters in Detroit that are mad. Like, we're not friends anymore strictly because you're famous. So
Right.
it's just such a unique time for this band. And I want to circle back because you mentioned Pitchfork, and we did the Pitchfork review for the Greenhornes. So this song also appeared on the Japanese version of an EP when they did
Hmm.
Walking with a Ghost. Um, uh, Unfortunately, the North American releases didn't have Shelter of Your Arms, but the Japanese one did, and Pitchfork decided to review it. They include this. So this EP only got a 6.1, which is tough. They go,
It's
the
better.
quality
It's
of the
better. It's better than Jet's review of Shine On, which infamously, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell. If you okay, I'm not
it's
going to
come
tell
up a
you what it
lot
is.
on this.
It
It's
has
come up a
it.
lot
Great.
on this show.
Oh man,
Yeah,
if it, oh,
they know
I
what
love
it
it.
is.
Okay, good, good, good,
So
good.
this is what Pitchfork says about our song this week. The quality of the extras and B-sides accompanying the Get Behind Me Satan singles have run the gamut. Their stormy Hendrixian cover of the Greenhornes' Shelter of My Arms. Uh, is it Shelter of My Arm? That's a typo.
It's Shelter of Your Arms.
Way to go, Pitchfork, you
You're not going to
you
be. You're
shit
not.
heels.
Yeah. What is going on? Who's the editor in chief that got to let that slip? Could you imagine that this typo took 19 years to come out, but it finally did, and here we are on this show. We should email the editor and be like, just to let you know, you're an idiot.
Letter to the editor.
Letter to the
Correction.
editor, you're a moron.
Shelter of Your Arms, a recent B-side to the Denial Twist, deserves to be considered alongside the duo's best work, while the Blue Orchid flip side, Who's a Big Baby, might arguably be the most worthless track released this year. I
Oh
agree
man.
with both statements. Um, what it take me down? What are your thoughts on the White Stripes version, musically, sonically? What stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was Ryan. If you know me, I'm such a huge um kind of like chamber rock, chamber pop per like stan now in my time of life where I'm listening to a lot of Caroline Polachek and Angel Olsen and Wise Blood and all these amazing artists that when I'm listening to the White Stripes hauntingly coming in and this is it's different. It's like I'm expecting the Kool-Aid man to knock through the door, but instead I get the graceful knock of a loving specter, right? And it's weird when you set up that expectation. You're like, hey, wait a minute. I'm
Yeah.
expecting like it's Homer knocking down the thing. He's like, hey, Marty, you want to see my new hockey mask chainsaw? Like that's what I was expecting.
Just cutting
So
some brownies.
yeah, it's kind of some. Come on, they're still hot. Um, I really actually honestly appreciate it enough that it's probably going to be on my Spotify most listened to of the month, and this week was kind of rocketing up and everything. Um, I think it's beautiful that our favorite artists take these detours. I think it's needed. I think
Hmm.
we need to trust them when they do so. I, you know, we've never had this conversation, but your favorite artist of the White Stripes, my favorite artist is Beck, and not because I think that Beck Hansen is this. Um, his music is beyond the realms of scope of genre because he switches genres every album. Just it is kind of his talent in doing that. But when our favorite artists take these slight detours, so you go from something like Odelay, and here's this guy talking about monkeys in a time machine,
Yeah.
to then him um, becoming heartbroken and then creating one of the greatest melancholic albums of all time. When I think about
Is
this
that, is
track for
that
the
New
Waste,
Moon?
no, so
It won album of the, whatever it is. It won album of the
it
year.
did
Like his
it so
best
it
work sounds nothing like
so
what
that's
brought
the,
Beck to
yeah,
the
so Newman,
dance.
so he did, with the album I'm talking about is Sea Change. So this
Oh
happens
yes.
after, so that's the very famous kind of Pink cover, and that's after he gets his divorce. And it's one of the most one of the most heartbreaking albums you can ever listen to. It's so dense and rich and kind of like concentrated with being in like the hollowed out shell of a human being going through heartbreak. But getting back to getting back to Shelter of Your Arms, I really, I don't know, I really appreciate it. I was surprised when you sent it to me and this was the song. Because in my head, I was always like, I wonder like if I'm ever going to be on the show and I wonder what song Ryan's going to
Yeah.
choose. I really do. And I appreciated that you picked this specific song that is so connective to like what I connect to currently in today's
Hmm.
kind of music scene of what I appreciate and what I enjoy. I think for a fan of the White Stripes of where I was, I would have probably loved to see more of this. I would have loved to see this, what this simplicity can do outside of like this folk punk,
Yeah.
folk rock kind of aesthetic, of being really interested in being like, I curious what you guys can do, like Jack being this fantastic, this rock kind of genius, and Meg being this, person whom can be this kind of advocate and vessel for understanding the simplicity and understanding like, yeah, less is more and it's fine.
Yeah.
And that's actually what makes it really good, of taking that mindset of can kind of continue. Like, wouldn't you have kind of been a little excited, Ryan, to think of what if they just took like a one album detour, like even
A one out.
like
Yeah.
a mixtape, like even like a B-side mixtape of all the stuff that they're like, this is the most un-White Stripesy stuff we did, and here it
Yeah.
is. It's like a Third Man Record Vault Collection special or whatever.
No, I love this idea because let's say they take a detour, and let's say the next album after Get Behind Me Satan is, it contains all the elements, loud guitar, quiet guitar, piano, organ, big drums, secretly overdub bass, which is on every album except
Hmm.
White Blood Cells. If they basically created that music, I would be really intrigued because one, I really like what Shelter of Your I really like what sonically Shelter of Your Arms, their cover, is.
Hmm.
And it contains everything the White Stripes were in previous versions, just all at the same time. So I would be curious to hear kind of a let's just say a big crazy album, because then I would also love to hear them interpret it live, because while the albums would evolve and be different, the live show was always the same. It was the two of them. It was a stage full of instruments, and they were all a little bit too far away from one another because that's how Jack liked to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been a good detour. I'm 100% agree with you. I'm on board with this because one, you got to hear something that's different and unique and it's evolving, but you also have to hear, they're gonna go on tour and you're going to hear the White Blood Cells version White Stripes. They only have two of them. They only have four hands combined. They're gonna have to take these massive songs and strip them down raw to play them the only way they know how. So
Yeah.
it would have been cool as hell.
So the real question is, at the time, let's say this is 2000, you're a few years removed from high school, would you have hated it? Like being at that age, putting yourself in that shoes,
Yeah.
understanding us as like young snobby kids who think we know everything about everything.
Hmm. I wouldn't hate it, because if they are taking this detour, like the one thing at the time as a kid I didn't like about Get Behind Me Satan was, I don't play a mandolin, don't play a fiddle, don't play a marimba, just play fucking rock and roll. Shelter of Your Arms is the things that all the elements that brought the White Stripes to the dance, it's just all at the same time, and it's chaos, and it's not authentic White Stripes because it's all, it's not live on the floor. So I think I would have liked it because I love the elements of it. It would have been strange, and like I'm the type of person, and maybe you are too, that like your interests, like you think they define you so much more than they do. So like I feel like I would have to defend the White Stripes if somebody, it's like,
Yeah.
well, they used to play live, and now they got this overproduced crap, and I'm like, no, you don't understand, it's not like that. I swear.
That was me. Listen. That was me when I was younger, and then the beauty of as you get older. Are we allowed to swear? By the way, great.
Yeah.
You don't give a shit, and that's the
No.
beauty. Is that you stop having to explain yourself, and you also just realize I like something, and if you don't like the thing I like, cool. You like something different, cool. That's great. That's
Absolutely.
whatever. What was the thing you brought up? Those. This wouldn't be a podcast with you and I if we didn't just talk about what you just talked about in terms of like people being like just play rock and roll. Those
Yeah.
same people have been telling us that we just need to play AC/DC at sporting events. And that's the only thing we got to play. And they don't understand that music is this broad spectrum of like mood, taste, history, circumstance, all these things that kind of dwell. But no, to most people, they're like, no, you either play Leonard Skinner or I'm all right, I'm going to riot. It's going to be 1994 all over again. It's gotta. I don't even care. Um, Sorry.
I
Last
love
thing
that.
that was in my brain was again we're just talking about like bands that around this time are coming up. Um, and I think of the White Stripes being this beautiful tree that has sprouted, and now it's dropped these seeds everywhere, and now we're kind of seeing all the inspirational seeds of
Oh
these
yeah.
bands.
Oh
One of the,
yeah.
one of the big ones for me, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. I
Absolutely.
think 2005 or 2006 was Show Your Bones.
Yeah.
And
Oh
here's
three
this.
was Fever to Tell or
Yes,
Maps,
fever to
whatever it's
tell.
called.
Well, yeah, and well, maps the. Let's. We haven't even talked about the impact the White Stripes probably had on Rock Band. Like we don't talk about the fact that you got a guitar and drums in the set. That's the only things you got, and that's for a reason. You didn't get a
Mm-hmm.
bass guitar. You didn't get a tambourine. You got two things and a microphone for your friend who thinks they can sing, and they were quickly humbled because they got like 3 stars out of 5. um but no, I honestly, as I was doing the prep for this show, I
Yeah.
could see so much more because it's been a while since I had and more of like a sit down and reflection over the White Stripes and being like, yeah, all these bands like Block Party being another one, like all these bands that probably wouldn't sound the way they sound if it wasn't for the White Stripes, again coming out during the 2000s and putting aside, Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park a little bit and just like the new and just being like, yeah, we're again, shit's not cool anymore. Too
Yeah.
many people are talking about the Nookie, whatever the hell that is. We need to come out, we need to come to and there was one more thing I was gonna ask. You guys have talked about the Meg stuff, I'm assuming, over the
Every
dozen.
episode.
Can we just understand for a second that if instead of Meg being Meg, if it was a man, she would not hear any of this. She would not get any of this hate about simplicity. And that
Oh yeah.
at that time in the 2000s, we had a large swath of angry white young males who are listening to this fucking new metal shit about how it's cool to fuck sexism is cool, man, it's cool that chicks, oh man, isn't it crazy, all this stuff. And she gets surrounded by this, not to say that before, before this kind
Yeah.
of new wave, that it was great for women in terms of the perception of
It's still the
the
most
male
one
gaze.
of the most, in
It
terms
was
of
one of the
toxic
most toxic
masculinity,
periods,
yeah.
totally one of the most toxic periods, and to weather through all that and to almost have this kind of calm fuck you attitude about it and
Yeah.
to continue doing what she did, um now it's really funny. The same people that probably talked mad amount of shit about her that have now grown up and understand, have a certain greater appreciation for music,
Mm-hmm.
probably do the thing where they're like, no, I always listen. I was always a big supporter.
One thing that impresses me, like we're as millennials, we are, easily the most anxious generation. We know how controlling and how derailing anxiety is and can
Hmm.
be. And then you have Meg, a prototypical Gen Xer, like shyest woman possibly in the world, most private, most reserved, gets hurdled onto the worldwide stage as a celebrity, and you know this timid, tiny, quiet, reserved woman is forced to be judged and ridiculed every day that she's famous. And there was a lot of love for Meg, but
Hmm.
sometimes the negativity is a lot louder and it's a lot more visible. For this woman to go out of her comfort zone and spend 10 years on this ride and then
Hmm.
being like, okay, my anxiety is, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, that is probably the most impressive thing about her, about this woman, that
Yeah.
her how reserved and how quiet and shy she is rivals only Bob Dylan. And then that she was able to do that in that era, and that of dripping in toxic masculinity for a
Yeah.
decade, and get out of it in one piece, probably rich as hell and hopefully happy as hell.
And I think, you know what, that is a lot of people that are listening, guys, like there's something really strong to be said about doing something in spite of that anxiety. Either
Yeah.
it's duty, or you feel that, a lot of people, very rarely do you go against something you're incredibly passionate about. It takes a lot for you to say the anxiety in this stuff isn't worth it. And the fact that she at that point did it for as long as she did
Mm-hmm.
speaks to the resiliency of that human being. Like, it takes a lot to. It's not about the
Arash
paycheck, man.
also,
It's not about the paycheck. It's
yeah,
not about any of that stuff. Like, you can, we've all been in a situation where we're like, dog, I'm, there's no paycheck big enough for me to take or go through this. My peace of mind,
yeah.
my freedom is worth way more than that.
How about listen, I wish I could come up with a better, no, I'll just say guts. How about having the guts in, like, in 2007, it comes
Hmm.
out that she's got acute anxiety. It's about a year and a half after this. Anxiety didn't become a safe uh, term that we all knew the severity of, and mental health did not become what it is comfortably today. So to
Hmm.
have the guts 10, at least a decade before it was socially acceptable to bow out because of mental health issues, to be like, I can't do this anymore. And they are at their height. And to
Hmm.
say at this point, it's too much for me. That's that's a gutsy punk rock motherfucker, and it just makes me appreciate all of her
Yeah.
contributions that much more.
I mean, even 2007, Ryan, like, that's like the first real foray to most mental health for people was probably watching Tony Soprano and Jennifer Melfi. I mean, I'm being honest, and I'm being honest. Like,
100%.
that's what their first real foray into the depths of psychology was. And even in 2007, 2008, 2009, we're still like, we get anxiety and feeling down, but
Weak
mo
people get anxiety.
yes, it's like, again, like, Gary Cooper, the strong silent type, and making a joke about it and being like, yeah, just go for
Yeah.
a run. You're doing this because you run. It's not, we did not having that. So even being in that state where you're doing it probably before the real understanding of it happens,
Yeah.
where we're coming into the 2010s and we're really understanding where healthcare, at least from a mental health standpoint, in certain countries, is becoming more accessible. There's more
Yeah.
counselors, therapists, especially in Canada, where we're able to. depending on where you live and your circumstance and environment, were able to have certain access to that as well. Um, the bravery of, like, I can't imagine back in '07 her doing this, and just of that time, maybe you can go in the Wayback Machine and look at
Yeah.
like some of the people being like, oh, she certain forums being like, why don't you just take a Percocet and chill out? What's going on? Why don't you do this
There was
crap?
some other, yeah, and there, if you go in the Wayback Machine, there was a controversy that was absolutely bullshit that was not her, and I don't even like bringing it up. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be, but I couldn't agree more. And I forgot to mention this as we wind down here. You mentioned The Sopranos. The Greenhornes' claim to fame, besides having one of their songs covered by the White Stripes and Jack stealing the rhythm section, one of their songs was featured in The Sopranos.
Do you know what scene it was?
It was, I don't know, it was in the episode with horse racing.
Oh yeah, Pie Oh My.
That's the one. So there's a Greenhorn song in that episode, Pie Oh My.
Oh,
Um,
good for them.
Good for them. The White Stripes, there was no video technically released. There was no official video for this, but there was a bit of a visualizer officially released in like '05, but it's
Dude,
not
these
something I...
visualizers, man. Remember Winamp and getting your Windows Media Player out and just playing around? Man, what a throwback to visualizers. You know the funny thing? Visualizers, before we even like were introduced to psychedelics and marijuana probably at the time, we're like, these just look cool. And we didn't know that they're
Hey, add
probably
some
meant for... Oh man.
So there's no video released, and in terms of live performance history, this song was only performed once live by the White Stripes. It was on October 22nd, 2005 at Planet.tt Bank Austria Hall Gasometer in Vienna, Austria. And I have
Those
never
lucky
heard it.
Austrians.
I'm sure they have that song recorded. I'm sure they have a soundboard recording of it somewhere, but we'll have no idea until they release that. One follow-up thing, you mentioned that this sounded like a Bond song for the first 30 seconds. It would be about 4 years later until Jack White finally got to do his Bond song with Alicia Keys, Another Way to Die, if I remember correctly.
Good pull. See, again, if they don't take these little detours, do we get what we get?
Absolutely. Okay. And there's another callback. You get what you give. Arash, as we wrap up here, you listened to this song a handful of times before we conversed. We've spent an hour talking about an insanely obscure White Stripe song they only performed once and seemingly does not exist. How are you listening to the song differently after this conversation?
Differently in which way? Could you specify?
Like, when you listen to it for the
From where
first
we
time.
started to where we are now.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think listening it from the perspective of, again, like I talked about, circumstance, time, change, where they were at. Can I
Yeah.
ask, was Jack at this point also, like, was he going through a breakup or a divorce at this time?
He had just married his second wife, Karen Elson, in
So
mid 2000. So he was pretty happy.
okay, but this is my thing: is that, was he also, and I read this. This might have been wrong. You can call me out on this.
Okay.
Was he not dating Renee Zellweger at this time?
During the Elephant era. So
And
he was
then,
about 3 years removed from that.
okay, all right. I thought for a second that the girl from Bridget Jones's Diary was to blame for all this. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. Is when your band, when your favorite artist suddenly releases like a very hauntingly heartbroken song, you're like, who you dating? This isn't a Facebook. Just what happened there? This, what in their
What's
personal
really
life?
going on?
What's really going on here?
Yeah. I when I listened, so I had a bit of a come to Jesus moment because the episode before this was another cover, and I've always loved it. It was from the Elephant era, and I always I don't want to say resented Shelter of Your Arms, but I'm like, it's not my white stripes. It's not something pure and authentic. And I'm like, it's too overdubbed. It's not something raw and pure. Previous week was Who's to Say, and I sat and listened to it really intently, and I'm like, oh, there is an electric guitar track, there is an acoustic guitar track, and there's piano all at the same time. But because it was the presentation was a little more chaotic for Shelter of Your Arms, I'm like, I'm essentially listening to the same type of production value and the same type of production technique, and that both songs are overdubbed and overproduced. But because Who's to Say reminded me more of My White Stripes, I never thought about it that way. So when I listened to this song, I'm listening to what the question that you brought up, which was perfect. Imagine if they spread their creative wings down that detour. So I'm always thinking, this is now a what if song for me.
What if I told you that ice cream and gelato are basically the same fucking thing? What if I told you if you went and gone for ice cream and you're like, oh, what's this gelato crap? It's the same. It's just
Yeah. I think if as we wrap up, if I could think of one thing, it's try not to, if you remember thinking a certain way about something when you were a child, maybe take a second stab at maybe recreating those feelings or thoughts with your adult brain, with that fully developed frontal lobe.
Just give it a minute. That's the best thing. I especially coming from like an arts background, is we have this idea that like we listen to something, or it's like Letterboxd or Pitchfork, right? We watch the movie, we immediately go on the app, that's the rating. We listen to something, we go to rate your music, boom, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You need to let things settle, and you need to also let your mind kind of do a little bit of work to see how certain artists got there. Now, I'll let you know, sometimes artists do stuff and it is what it is, and it's immediately the thing that you think it is, right? Like it's like I'm trying to think, oh my gosh. Wait.
It's exactly that. They've put out something that doesn't require that much
100%
more sizzle.
It's like when Metallica and Lou Reed released Lulu, and you're thinking, wait a minute, did I just not get it? No, you don't understand. This is just, they tried something and it did not work. It just didn't. There's
and they're artists, so all the power for them trying something crazy.
You tried, and that's beautiful. But just don't expect to make, don't bank your mortgage payment on the success of this experiment.
Okay, that was Arash. I'm Ryan and Arash. We have could you tell we had a pre-existing relationship, whether that be in personal life or to podcasting? Quite the rat-a-tat-tat, if you will. But let me be honest with you, we are moving this weekend. I'm not 100% sure if there will be an episode out this week. We can blame it on Labor Day, on a long weekend, or blame it on the stresses of moving. But it's going to be touch and go next week. But we will be back on your podcast feeds in no time. And that is because the Hardest Podcast a Podcast is hosted and produced by Ryan Schaap. Artwork by Catlin Likely. Amanda Schultz is our assistant editorial producer. And Mike Noble is our gator.